So retirement. We've been saving for a very long time to have this retirement thing, and for different people it means different things, and I think a lot of people really they actually have the money and the resources to afford to retire, but they don't look forward to it. Like they feel when they come out of that workforce that some of their identity goes away. So what I wanted to help you do is I've got some best ideas of folks that have retired that we've had the pleasure of working with over the years, and some of the things that go with it, financial strategies and things sprinkled in, to give you all ideas of some things that you might want to look forward to during your own retirement. So retirement, everybody's got a different vision for what retirement is. And as you are thinking about retirement, just like anything in life, if you want it to be great, you need to think ahead. You need to plot ahead, right? So some of you are already at retirement, some of you are very close to it. So depending on where you're at, everybody's got a different vision. So I want to share a few ideas of what vision might look like for some people, right? Some people might like restful days, right? Others might have a different view. Family outings, you know, getting the grandkids together, hanging out. Others may find themselves touring the streets of Italy, you know, on bikes, dressed up like you're going to a fancy dinner on a bicycle. Healthy lifestyles, right? This is a big deal. You know, people are living a lot longer, but it has to do with, you know, what are you doing with your time? We're all in this running a little on the wheel, treadmill, we can't get off, just having some downtime to think. What do you want your life to be about? What do you want when you're gone, people to remember you as having made your contribution? And if you're working every single day all the time, it's very difficult to just get time to think. So I think that's a place that some people look forward to having. Reflection time. You know, how many of you have seniors in your life that, you know, let me tell you, when I was your age, right, this is how things used to be, but there's great stories and there's great knowledge to be passed down. So that's something to look forward to as some opportunities to share. New hobbies. I might do this. I don't know. I mean, I can't do paint your pot, but I might be able to paint a canvas, maybe. I don't know, but different things, right? Still not. I bet you there's some people in here that would be here. My wife loves this. We got a lot of golfers. They love golf, you know, nice day. This guy's so excited about this putt she's getting ready to make. It's pretty exciting, right? All right. Just enjoying your friends and time and dinners and meals together. I might write a book. I might write a book. I feel like that I have some things that I could impart that maybe people would be interested in. But some people like to write. Some people like to read. The Joneses, where are they at? They're in the room. Hanging out with the Joneses, right? So this is Will and Miranda and Don and Rebecca. This is picture perfect. This is what I think of when I see you guys. I think of this, right? This is retirement at its best. Living life, hanging out with your friends. I could even go to the beach if we were going to do that. But my retirement vision is this is what I'm thinking about for me, right? For retirement. Right? I want to go some explosive snow skiing. That'd be kind of fun, right? So here's the thing, not everybody gets what they're looking for, right? We don't want this to be anybody. In fact, I know this won't happen to people here, because we work diligently to keep you prepared, but man, it is really crazy how many people struggle with how are we going to make things work at retirement. So with that, we're going to move into how does this all work out, right? How do you make this work? And just give you some good ideas, and it's going to be interactive. And when I can, I'll make it fun so you can remember it. And if I can't, then just hang on. We'll get to the next topic, you know, soon enough, all right? So budgeting, right? So big part of retirement is about the budget, okay? And what's interesting is most people in this room and most people that have worked a long time and saved a long time for retirement have actually stopped living on a budget a long time ago. They started making a budget so they would make things work, and they budget how much they save and how much they need to put away and how much for little Joey to go to college. But eventually, it became a routine. I make this, I spend that, every month there's some left over and I put it away, and Lynn says we need to save this much per year. As long as I've done that, then everything else we can just do what we want to do. We can give it away, we can spend it, it doesn't matter. But many people forget or lose track of actual budgeting. Okay? When you are entering retirement, you have to go back and sharpen those skills. because the checks stop coming, right? You're living off what you've saved, or you're living off projected earnings, or so on and so forth. So for those of you that have not done a budget in a while or forgot the importance of it, we've given you some budget sample one-pagers, keep it simple, so that you can use to think about when you retire, you have to fill out that piece of paper, and it needs to be right. You need to put on there what it's going to cost for the things that you spend money on. You have to think about if you're only going to get so much money per month, how much are you going to spend of it? Now, before you retire, you have to do a few things. So this is an opportunity road marker on your note card. There's a little pin that says budget. All right. So if I give you a good idea here, you could make a note. So trying to really help this make this easy. But here's a couple things that I think are important to remember when you do your budget for retirement. People miss this, but when you look at your income, I've got this, and this. Most people put down Social Security for Bob, Social Security for Linda, pension, savings, interest, But you have to remember, one of the two spouses is going to leave this earth before the other one, right? And so you have to think about, what do I do when one of the Social Securities goes away, right? So think a little bit about, could you survive for half of your retirement maybe, or a third of your retirement with only one of those Social Securities in your income, okay? It's a little nugget, but some people don't do it, and then they have a problem later that they can't fix, okay? Another thing might be your Social Security. When do you start it? Some people retire at 55 or 60 or 62, and they are not taking Social Security, and the big question is when should I start it? Should I start it now? Should I start at 66? Should I wait till I'm 70? If you don't know how to use the Social Security calculators, where they show you how to maximize your lifetime of Social Security payments based on when you take them and the assumptions you have about longevity, they're very, very good to use. So we have those calculators available. We can run those analysis for you. No cost or no worries to do that. But some people believe that I should just hold off on Social Security because it's a larger amount per month, but then I'll just live off of my savings or my investments, or maybe take monies from my IRAs until it's time to take that. But you have to remember that if you were taking your Social Security, the money that you had left alone would also grow. So there's a time value of money with your Social Security, okay? So think about that part of the budget. How should you optimize it? And we've got some really great tools and software that we can give you or show you on that front. Okay, then your budget. Once you've got it figured out, and realize the budget is a tricky thing too, because so we use this thing called eMoney. And some of you we have that for, right? We have a tool called eMoney that tracks everything you do. Like every charge on your credit card, every bill you have, every mortgage payment, all of it in real time. You can pull it up on your computer or your iPhone or whatever, and it tells you how much you spend, where you spend it by category. My wife likes to say, you know, your business credit card is not on here, so I can't see what you spend. Yes, that's right. But if it were on there, then we would have a lot more discussions, because I spend things on different things than she spends things on. And since she doesn't really get into what I spend things on, and I don't get it, we don't argue, because she does her thing and I do my thing. But it can be a source of frustration between a husband and a wife when you start talking about, well, you know, you spend this much on that, and you spend. So if you're going to do the budget together, which you really need to, you may want to prepare yourselves, pray. I don't know, just bring it down a little bit, because it's give and take. But you have to do it. If you don't do it because you don't want to go through that, and you try to retire not knowing exactly what you spend, you're setting yourself up for a really bad problem down the road, okay? And then once you have a budget, I really encourage you to get on eMoney, which we can give you for free, or you can use other services like mint.com or Fidelity Full View if you have a Fidelity 401k plan, where it'll show you every month, here's where all your money goes, right? And once you have that for about 6 months, you can look at that piece of paper and you can say, oh, we were pretty close, or no, we weren't pretty close. Okay, but that's how you can check it. All right, so those are some little nuggets about budgeting for retirement, that 3 pieces there you might find useful. All right. In the budget is health care. Okay, It's probably the 800-pound gorilla in all of retirement planning because it's an unknown, right? But I thought I'd at least give you some general rules of thumb, and if you haven't already dealt with it, you will, and if you have dealt with it, you know what I mean, and you may have situations that are even well more complicated than what I'll describe here. But you know, when you get to 65, then your traditional health care goes away and you're eligible for Medicare. You get Part A, it's easy to get Part A, it's taken care of. You have like a $1,300 a year hospitalization deductible. Beyond that, that's what the hospital part does. You'd also need a Part B, right? B is going to cover doctors and other types of non-hospital type things, and with Part B you generally have to pay a premium. It can be as low as $130 some a month, and it can be higher as well if you have high income. And then you also have, generally you see people get a Part D for drugs, and so the Part D can have its own number. So from a budgeting standpoint, it's $180 to about $380 a month is what you should budget per person for your health care stuff, not your actual co-pays and doctor visits, but like your monthly stuff after 65, right? But before 65, you have to pay for health insurance. And so these are some general guidelines that you might want to use, right? If you're between age 60 and 65, you might want to budget between $600 and $850 a month for your health care. About $1,000 a month per person between 60 and 65 for traditional health care, okay? Then when you get to 65 to 70, by the time you put your Medicare, your supplements, your co-pays together, then you're going to be between $600 and $850 a person per month. Those are good ranges to budget for, right? And I could break down those pieces more, but that's big picture, okay? And then the thing that everybody is I struggle with it, is long-term care, because long-term care does not cover, is different than medical insurance, right? Long-term care is when you can't do 2 of the 6 activities of daily living: bathing, toileting, getting in and out of bed, for whatever reason your body is breaking down. Could be mental deterioration like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, or it could be you had a series of medical things that have put you in a position where your body doesn't allow you to recover. But the long-term care scenarios can get really expensive as well if you have an extended long-term care situation. One of the things that I feel like is interesting, I'm not a big fan of long-term care insurance because I just don't like insurance, but it doesn't mean that everybody in this room and everybody we know might need it, right? It's a tough pill for me to swallow because I just have a thing about buying insurance. But I think with long-term care, there's a lot of people that are going to need it, and policies are out there and they get expensive, more expensive every year. So if you haven't looked at it, you should look at it. I did find something recently that I'm pretty interested in, is if you have a permanent life insurance policy with cash value in it, you can actually, in certain situations, you can add a rider to your life insurance that says, if I need long-term care while I'm alive, I can access the death benefit monies to pay for my long-term care. And the reason that I like that versus buying a policy for long-term care is that I know I'm gonna die, right? That's gonna happen, and if I'm gonna have a life insurance policy that's gonna pay a death benefit, then I know that when I'm paying that money in, that somebody's gonna get it. I'm either gonna use it if I had a long-term care rider to pay for long-term care, or when I pass away, my wife, my kids, or whomever are gonna get something out of it. My biggest issue with a lot of insurance, even like health insurance, if I don't get sick, I feel like I'm just paying for this thing for no reason for a long, long time, right? If I have car insurance and I never have a claim. So those are some things to check into. But this concept of adding riders to your life insurance is pretty new, right? There's also some annuities that you can say, hey, they'll pay you 1% a year interest or something lower than the market, and they'll give you a multiplier of what you put in it as a long-term care thing. But you need to have those discussions and figure out on your roadmap as you're getting into retirement, this medical cost, you need to know what it's going to be, because it's the 800-pound gorilla. And you can do everything else right, get that wrong, and your retirement picture is not going to look like what you thought it was. Does that make sense? All right, moving on. Sustainability. So sustainability is this concept of knowing that what you have is going to last you, okay? So you do the exercise, you fill out the budget, you check it, you make sure it's right. Then you look at your sources of income. I've got Social Security, pension, and distributions from my nest egg. When you get to the part that's representative of what you're taking out of your nest egg, you need to know the rule of 12. It's very important. I even put an icon on here so you can make a note, okay? Your age divided by 12 gives you a distribution factor, okay? If I'm 60 and I want to retire, 60 divided by 12 is 5. I could take out 5% of my nest egg each year, and there's a very high probability I will never run out of money. Now that makes the assumption that you're using a budget and a halfway well-thought investment strategy, right? If you had all your money under your mattress, that's not going to work, right? If you have all your money in stocks and the market goes down 50%, that's not going to work. You need to have like an investment strategy, which everybody here does, or you wouldn't have been invited. But age divided by 12 is important, okay? If you take less than that, you're giving yourself cushion, all right? And then one other thing is, let's say you do your budget, do your age divided by 12, and now you know what you're taking out. Some years, your portfolio might make 13 to 14%, like last year. Many of you made double-digit returns last year, okay? Some years, you might lose 2%, 5%, or maybe you make 3%. You might have years where you're taking out more than you made, but on the years that you have a good year, those are the years that you deal with the not normal expenses. We got to fix the roof. That doesn't happen every year, right? We got to upgrade the car. We want to do that in a year where the things are up. So the things that are not regular expenses, you want to tag those in retirement when you're living on a budget to the years that your investment or your cash flow spikes up. Don't do it the opposite way. Market's down, we need a new car, we're going to have to make this one work, right? Until the market goes up, until your strategy goes up, until your investments go up. It will go up. You just got to tag the big expenses with the big returns that will help you make your money last a lot longer. But age divided by 12 is a big deal, okay? It's a rule of thumb for sustainability. Okay, you've done all that. You're on your map. You're moving forward. We're now into active living, right? We're moving into now what? I'm retired. I'm pulling the trigger. I've got it all figured out, okay? Here's a little bullet hint, okay? Caution. Do not make a big deal when you retire, because you might not want to stay retired very long, and if everybody knows you're retired, whoever you work for might not want to bring you back. Like there's this thing in corporate America where corporations would rather hire younger people that are plugged in, tuned in, whatever, and once you retire, there's a stigma sometimes, right? It's just something we've observed a lot. So it's cool to get your best friend and your wife and have a party and all that kind of stuff, but I would encourage you to not get so that everybody in the world knows that you're retired in the work community, because you may not want to stay retired. You may not need the money. You may need a reason to get out of the house every day, right? I don't know. You might need a reason for your spouse to get out of the house every day. So tiptoe around how you retire so it's not this big, oh yeah, they retired like 4 years ago. Surely they don't know what we're doing anymore, right? You don't want that concept going on, all right? So just a little thought there. Okay, so you've retired. First step that I really see people that get it right in the long run do right up front. They do nothing. They literally take weeks or months, get all the little honey-do list things. They go through some of that. The stacks of mess they've been meaning to deal with for the last 10 years, they deal with that. But they spend a lot of time thinking about, look, I've got a certain number of years left. What do I want to accomplish? Because now I actually have the opportunity to do the things that I couldn't do when I was running on the treadmill, right? So the decompression process, what we call it, is healthy, right? Some people find that to be incredibly difficult because they're defined by what they just did for the last 20 years. You know, I used to run this department. I used to, you know, make this happen. I used to solve these equations. I used to get so many customers. I used to sell so many widgets, whatever it might be. But when you get out, you really got to let all of that like fall off so that you can think, look, I've got this many years left. What do I want my wife, my kids, my family, my friends to think of me and my life when I'm gone? And think it through, because if you don't, you'll just do whatever is natural, which is probably something similar to what you were doing when you were in the grind every day. Because we're behavior, we're creatures of habit, right? So one thing that I think is important when we observe this is that you can catch up with other friends that have retired, that went through this process of thinking through what's important, what I want to do, and just spend some time with them. Goals, bucket list, right? So this is where we get to take a little pause and talk about bucket list. Some of you in here have retired. Some of you are close enough to retire that you have some of your bucket list formed. But what are some ideas that you guys have? What are some things on some of your bucket list? Just to throw out some ideas. Well, yeah, but to where?
Africa.
Go to Africa. Travel and see Africa. Go and see Europe. But, you know, like, what about an activity? I mean, traveling, okay, sure. But what about something that you've always wanted to do?
Volunteer.
Volunteer. What's some great places to volunteer at? Meals on Wheels? Right? Food bank? Yeah. So travel, volunteer. Some people may want to go and reconnect with their kids. Maybe you had a weird relationship with your parent and you want to spend time and reconnect with them if they're still around or whatever. So everybody's got their bucket list, but you got to make that so you know what you're going to aim for in the years ahead. Okay, healthy living. So you're decompressing, you're making your bucket list, you got some ideas, you're going to set up, this is when I'm going to go to Europe. This is how much it's going to cost. I'm going to go to Africa, and this is how much it's going to cost. And when I go there, this is the places I want to make sure I see. You got to get like granular. What's it going to look like? When am I going to do it? How much is it going to cost? So you're making these bucket list things. But in addition to that is this healthy living component. So healthy living is not only about eating right, and it's about healthy habits. It's actually, you know, sleep. It's so funny. I was gaining weight more than I wanted to, and like just what happens when you get older and you don't do anything better than what I do, I guess. But I realized that I wasn't sleeping enough. Like I figured out if I was actually awake 19 hours a day, that I would be hungry more than I would be hungry if I was only awake, 16 hours a day. Right? Now I know that makes no sense, but actually I have lost 8-9 pounds since I started sleeping 7 to 8 hours a night versus 5 or 6 hours a night, right? My wife said, yeah, you need to sleep. But I'm wired weird. That's just how I'm made. I can't, but here's a key, so exercise, I got a lot of visions of what that might look like, and a lot of them I'm not super excited about doing, but I know I need to, but I try to find ways to do it. The guys, there's a guy in my office, he's in the room, he's a killer basketball player. We go play basketball at lunch a couple days a week when we can, right? That's not like lifting weights, but it's movement. But find things for you that you like to do. Movement is the key. If you're moving, that's the key, right? You probably know that. All right. And then a sustainable rhythm. You want to find a rhythm, get into a habit. When you're retired, every day is a Saturday. Figure out what you're going to do every day that you like to do that has, healthy lifestyle. Okay, and the to-do list. Did you know that healthy living can be impeded by your inability to focus? If you have so many things coming at you every single day, you can't actually stop and focus on what you need to do to be healthy. And many of us have this to-do list of things that you've been meaning to do for a long, long time. It's actually part of your mental health to get that list to go down. My dad's been working on his to-do list for like 20 years, and it's much smaller now. And I think he actually feels more healthy now. He used to feel like he had so much to do all the time, and I'd call him up, and I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, well, I'm working on this." He couldn't even tell me what he was working on because he had so much on his plate, right? So try to get your to-do list to go down. That's an important part of your mental health. All right, active living. Travel, friends, family, make progress on the bucket list, live on budget. So there is a point when you get past retirement. You've retired for about a year or two, and you're getting into these things. You're doing the things on your bucket list. You're spending time with friends and family. You have to come back to your original budget. That piece of paper, if you use it, you should copy it, put it on your computer, put it in a safe place. Come back to it in a few years once you've actually figured out what you're going to be doing day to day, and figure out, are you still on budget? Because what happens is you can easily creep up in your expenses, and you can potentially threaten your sustainability. So my mentor, Larry Carroll out of Charlotte, is about 15 years older than me. He works with mostly people that have been retired for a long, long time. And one or two things happens to about 90%. They either have more money than they can ever spend when they pass away or in their last elderly years, or they run out of money. There's very few in the middle, right? And it's because you get into a pattern of spending, and if you don't go back and recheck it, is what I'm taking out not violating that rule of 12, or is it? And once you begin to take out more money than you know you should, then sometimes you feel like, well, I don't know any other way I'm going to be able to do it, so you just keep doing it, and it becomes a disastrous path, right? So you have to come back a few years into your retirement and look at, are we on budget? Are we doing what we set out to do or not? Okay. All right, and then another thing I think is helpful in this active living thing is, a lot of people are very, have their faith and have things they believe in spiritually, and I find that most people that connect the healthy living activities to doing it with people or in concert with people on mission to their faith is something that generates a peace. Right, and the peace creates lower stress levels, and lower stress levels make your longevity better, right? So I encourage everybody, whatever, I believe in Jesus. I'm a Christian. I try to align my activities and things that serve what the Bible says. But everybody has different beliefs and things. But I do think that conceptually, if you align the things you try to spend your time doing with your faith, there is a mental health piece that's really, really good, and I encourage you to look for that in your retirement journey, because you have more time to spend, pondering that. Okay, so you're retired, doing some things on your bucket list. Let's think about this legacy concept, right? You want to leave behind something. Some people are like, no, I want to take it all. I want to spend the last dollar when I go in the box, okay? But many people want to leave a legacy, and there's different kinds of legacies, right? There's financial legacies, there's intellectual legacy, there's a spiritual legacy. If you want to leave a financial legacy of some sort to someone, these are the things you need to think about to do it, okay? You got to keep going back to your long-term budget and make sure that you're not violating your sustainability. If you determine that what you're taking out every year is under that rule of 12, and there's still balances going up, and you project that forward till mortality, most of you in this room will have money left over, okay? Because I just know, we've been working on it, I know, right? If you want to build a legacy that's the leftover pieces that you can begin to think through, what do I want to initiate with that to make a difference when I'm gone, right? And so you'll know in the future what your actual cost of lifestyle is. You can project it forward, and the excesses can be redirected. And I think that living gifts is a fantastic thing. Some people say, well, when I'm gone, you're going to get this. And that's great. But the object of your affection could use some help now, right? Whether it's your son or daughter or charity or something important to you. And you're going to get to enjoy the joy it brings that recipient if you can make that happen while you're alive, to see it, to experience it, right? But you can't do that logically unless you've done the other pieces. I know what my budget is. I know what's projected here. I'm taking out a certain amount. It was enough. Here's the excess. I can give from the excess. If you just give because I want to give, you might be harming your own sustainability. Does that make sense? So you have to check yourself. Keep going back to the budget. Keep going back to what you have. The excesses, you can systematically begin to give them away. You can put things in a trust. I want to tell you, here's a little radar button. If you create a living trust that says, hey, when I pass away, these are the things I want this money to go to, it gives a lot of direction to your children, to your spouse, to people around you. But you have to remember that sometimes the assets don't get put in the trust. Like you go and you have a trust design that says, I want to put this and this and this in the trust, and when I die, here's where it's all going to go. I saw a couple cases recently where the dad and the mom did this trust. They put it all together. They told the kids about it. Here's all the things. Mom passed away. Dad's remarried. The money didn't come to the children. Like, what's going on? And here's the trust. And the money was never put in the trust. And the dad said, well, it just defaulted, it came to him. And so he's like, well, I'll give it to you as you need it. Well, I don't think that's really what the kids thought was going to happen. So you can create a trust, but you got to make sure to put the assets in the trust, or it's a waste of your effort. Does that make sense? And the other thing about trusts and wills and things is that if you have an asset with a beneficiary designation, you need to know it's not, no will or no trust can tell anybody what to do with it. If your 401k says my money's going to Betty Sue, it doesn't matter what anything else says, the money's going to Betty Sue, right? So if you have a joint account with somebody, it's not going to where your will says, it's going to the person that's on the joint account with you, right? So that's some stuff that you can think through. If you have any of those items that you're not sure are right or you want some help, any of our team can help you with that anytime, okay? Building an intellectual legacy, right? Some of you are super smart. Some of you guys have done some cool stuff that very few people in the world will ever get to do. And you may want to find ways to impart what you've learned to the next generation. This is where writing down lessons for your kids or for people that you think can use it. If you do decide to write, whether it's a book or novel or journals or just life's lessons, try to index it. Try to make it so that, hey, in this chapter, this is what I'm talking about, or in this book over here, this is what I'm talking about. Because a lot of people try to do this for their the people they want to leave things behind for, but then it's so unorganized that people never actually read all the way through it and figure out what you were trying to impart them with. So just a little nugget there, okay? If you do have those in your life that you want to impart wisdom, it's very important in your retirement to be very intentional about making yourself available. Here's the crazy key, on their timetable. Everybody in this room has worked in a very demanding job, in a high-paced work environment for many, many years. We're used to people working around our schedule, especially our kids when they were growing up. But if you really want to impart wisdom onto somebody, you have to figure out what their schedule is, and you have to change your schedule to fit into their schedule. Otherwise, they won't make the time for you. They won't have the time for you, right? And I've seen some parents, that are retired get to feel like that their kids don't want them in their life just because the time doesn't work, but it's because the parents don't make the time at the right time to be with the kids when the kids have the time to be with them. Does that make sense? So it's a little different way of thinking. And then the last thing, this is going to be so hard for me because I'm a motor mouth, I'm a verbal processor, but if you really want to share what you've learned, you have to listen first for an extended period of time, because people, they've been listening to you talk all the time, your whole life, right? If you want them to actually ask you for something that they're going to process and store away in their mind, you have to be quiet and just you tell me what's going on in your life. You have to show them how much you care about them, and then pick your select moments to slip in the little nugget. Have you ever thought about da-da-da-da-da, right? And maybe you can get into a conversation that they'll retain. But listening, the whole you got two ears and one mouth, I'm really bad at it. I'm bad. I just can't shut up half the time, and that's just a flaw. That's how I operate. But this is important for the people that you really care about. You got to listen more than you speak, and then they will actually, less becomes more. All right? Okay, spiritual legacy. A lot of you, I know several of you are deep in your faith, and I'm with you, right? And you want more than anything your kids to follow along what you believe in, and you want to show them. In demonstrating faith, this is one of the things that somebody told me, and I see it to be so true. It's not about what you say. What you say has so little to do with it. It's about what those people observe you do. What is your behavior? How do you reflect your faith? How do you treat the homeless man on the side of the street? How do you treat the widows and the orphans? How do you treat the people that you serve with, right? Not what you say, what do you do? That's what they'll see, right? And lead by example. Whatever your spiritual scenario is the example, not what you have to say. So as you're going through retirement, you have that time and you're thinking about how to leave a spiritual legacy, think about what you do, not what you say. Later in life, later phases of retirement, all these things have pieces to them that can be something to look forward to, all right? Slow and steady is a phase I would call when you're getting a lot of those things off the bucket list. You've been living actively, you've been making your rounds, you've been working on your legacy, you've been just reflecting in your faith and your walk, and then you're kind of at this stage, you're just staying engaged. You got some activities that are healthy, you maintain quality of life, you begin to use more service providers, right? You will get quality people helping you do things in your life, because life's super short now. You don't want to waste your time. Pick your battles as you get older, right? You don't need to do everything yourself, right? Be really intentional about what you do, and then super intentional connecting with family. And as people get a little older, they get less mobile, so this is where technology can be super helpful. I get to see so many young people, they're Skyping and Facebooking and Facebook Live and Instagram Live and Apple, I don't know. They can talk and see and say, look, here's what I'm doing, right? So if you have, make sure you know how to use these things as you get older, because they can help you stay connected to your kids. Living gifts, like I said a little earlier, make sure that you don't wait until you're leaving to give things that you can. It's so much more enjoyable to empower your beneficiaries when you get to see it. Keep your will updated, your beneficiaries updated. You need to make a list of where to find your stuff. How many in this room have ever had to settle an estate? A fair number of you. So any of you had to deal with a situation where you couldn't figure out where everything was at? Anybody? Well, you might have had organized parents, but it gets really hard. Things that are important, make a note where they're at, how to find them, make a list. If you use something like Mint or eMoney or several other tools, there's actually an online vault that you can put all your documents in your system, and you can give a password to your children, which is pretty cool. But make sure they can get to it. And then your final directives. Let me tell you a story, okay? So my wife and I'm not talking about my wife and me, I'm talking about somebody as an example. This is what they told me. My wife and I, we had this scenario, this was our budget, and this is how much we had, and we're gonna live on that. When we die, we're gonna leave our kids with da-da-da-da-da, right? And that was the plan. And they never wrote it down and made the kids have full knowledge of the plan. And so what happened is one of them got sick, passed away, the other one knew what the prior one wanted, had agreed to, but then found happiness with another person and decided to remarry, which is fine, no big deal. But the resources with the new marriage became different than the original plan, and everything was okay, fine, for years and years and years. And then one day, a child of the person that remarried found where they had written it down and not shared it with the kids. And because it didn't happen like it was supposed to, destroyed a relationship forever, right? This money stuff, man, it can be so vile, right? I mean, it can give you all the resources to do great things, but it can destroy relationships. So if you make a budget, make a plan, get your children to see it, tell them where to find it, because they'll hold each other accountable. You know, things happen, things change, and if you love your kids, you want to get them involved to know what your directives would be when it's all over and done, okay? My belief is that it's a good thing. When it's time to go up out of here, it only gets better, all right? But the people around you, you know, they need to know where you stand so that they don't go for years and years and years thinking, oh man, it was a terrible, like, you know, because the end of life stuff can be difficult, but you need to find the things to celebrate when you get to that point. And if you do that, and you seek that out in your planning, I think it will make your children's future and their future super bright. Retirement budgeting, going back to the beginning of retirement, includes Social Security income. If you're looking to retire before age 66, which is for many of you full Social Security age, you need to make sure you get a calculator, see what's the best year to do it. Second, there's some other things that go on between when you quit earning and age 66. Like, if, you know, many of you have highly appreciated stock, and if you're married filing joint and your income, because you have no income for a few years, is under $70,000 or $77,000, you can actually sell your highly appreciated stock and have zero capital gains, right? You can sell a highly appreciated real estate investment and have zero capital gains. There's a limited window of time that you can pull that off if you can keep your income under $77,000, married filing joint. And it typically can only be done from when you retire until you start taking Social Security, because if two people start taking Social Security, the two Social Security checks are going to push you close to that $77,000 without any other income. So just a little thought, right? So if you're in that realm, be sure to see one of us, because we can show you some scenarios that might change your perspective of what to take first, when, where, and how, okay? Second item here, which account should you spend down first? You know, a lot of you have multiple things, and it's important that you're always tax conscious. The more you pay in tax, the less you're going to have, right? And it compounds. So every year you need to look at things like converting IRA money to Roth IRA money if you're below a tax threshold. Like if you're going to have your total income this year be $63,000 and you're married filing joint, maybe you want to go ahead and take $14,000 and convert it to a Roth, make it taxable, pay 15% tax versus a higher tax later, and take money to live on from different places. But there's a strategy. Every year you got to revisit it, all right? Okay. Budget loss for pension. You know, I mentioned that right up, but don't forget that. Some people forget that. How do you deal with it? You can, if you're healthy, you can buy a life insurance policy that would pay the amount of income or amount of money equal to the income that you'd lose in Social Security. That's called Pension Max. But just don't forget that that's a problem, and you can potentially deal with it by giving somebody else that risk. Steps to test your budget. Does anybody remember what I told you? That's sustainability. That's a good question. I mean, that's a good answer. How can you test your budget? Revisit it, right? And you can do it digitally with like e-money, or you can just get out your checkbook and your Visa and your MasterCard and add it all up every year, but you got to revisit it. That's the key. That's a great answer. When should you not leave everything to your surviving spouse? Yeah, there's scenarios where, you know, you want certain things for your children or certain things for certain charity. Like if you do nothing, the state rules is going to go to the spouse. So you make sure you do something if you want to have some more directive, right? Okay. Thinking about leaving money to people or giving money. Just one thing I failed to mention earlier. Many of you make contributions to charities, okay? And the new tax law is going to change your incentive to do that for many of you. The new tax law, because you get such a high standard deduction, $20-some thousand of standard deduction stuff for a married filing joint, that many of you will no longer itemize. So you'd have to give away a lot of money to get an actual tax deduction for your charitable contribution unless you itemize. If you want to be tax smart, you can still give away, you can make a charitable contribution from your IRA, right? And by making a charitable contribution from your IRA, you're taking pre-tax money and give it to the charity, which is the same net effect of taking pre-tax money and paying taxes and then getting a tax deduction for giving to the charity. But you can bypass that, right? So if you're getting to, it's going to be late in the year here soon, and you typically make some bigger contributions to things that are important to you, talk to one of us about, hey, are you really going to be able to deduct that this year or not? And if you're not, let's talk about maybe another way we could do it so it gives you a similar benefit, right? Follow up with you. Okay, that's it. Enjoy your dessert. Thank you guys for coming. Hope you found this journey tonight to be helpful. All right? All right.
All economic and performance information is historical and should not be considered indicative of future results. Investments in securities do not offer a fixed rate of return. Principal yield and/or share prices will fluctuate with changes in market conditions, and when sold or redeemed, you may receive more or less than originally invested. These views are those of Adams Financial Partners and should not be construed as investment advice. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. Consult your financial advisor for more information.